Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar, Reentry and Tanf, Supporting Mothers on Their Path to Independence. We are delighted to have a great lineup of expert presenters to discuss this topic with you today. I'm James Butler, and I serve as one of the program specialists here in the Office of Family Assistance within the Administration for Children and Families. I want to take a minute or two to briefly discuss how to navigate the webinar platform before introducing our facilitator. For those of you who may not be familiar with how to use GoToWebinar, in the upper right corner of your screen is the control panel. You can minimize or enlarge the control panel by simply clicking on the orange arrow. By expanding the control panel, you can scroll to the bottom to submit your questions for the presenters. You can enter your questions throughout the webinar and indicate which speaker you'd like to respond to your questions. We will monitor your questions and address them during our Q&A session. We'll also be launching a few polls throughout the presentation that will pop up on your screen automatically. You can respond to those polls by clicking on the radio button next to your preferred response. And we'll leave each poll question open for about 30 seconds before we close it out. So today's webinar will be facilitated by Jessie Kendall, who serves as the project director at ICF. Jessie comes to us with over 17 years of experience in technical assistance and capacity building provision, writing, research, and information dissemination. She works on a broad spectrum of initiatives in anti-poverty programming, workforce human trafficking, juvenile justice, and education systems. She has authored or directed the publication of over 30 policy and practice books, articles, and practice guides relating to children and families, and has spoken at many national and state conferences on issues affecting vulnerable families. So, ladies and gentlemen, Jessie Kendall.
Thanks so much, James, and welcome everyone. Next slide. So as you can see on the slide, today's webinar is going to have three primary components to it. We'll have presentations from each of our speakers, who I'll introduce in a moment. We'll have some polling questions throughout for you to engage with. And then at the end, we will have some Q&A. Now, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and we'll be monitoring that so that we can facilitate the Q&A at the end. Today, we're going to be exploring the prevalence of incarceration among moms, as well as the impacts it has on them and their families. Our speakers will highlight the role TANF plays in helping moms meet different requirements, whether that's child welfare or parole or otherwise, and to gain employment. You'll be hearing from 4 speakers you can see on the screen right now. The first, an expert in research on incarceration in families. We'll then hear from 2 representatives from TANF programs in New York and Vermont, who will share how their program structures and services meet the needs of reentering moms. And finally, we'll hear from a representative from a local nonprofit, also based in Vermont, who will share insights about how TANF programs can collaborate with community-based organizations. Throughout the presentation, as James noted, we're going to launch a few polls for you to respond to. So when the poll comes up, click on the radio button next to your preferred response. And again, we'll keep those open for about 30 seconds for you to respond. So let me introduce our speakers. First, Ann Adelis Estrin is the director of the National Resource Center on Children and Families of the Incarcerated at Rutgers University in Camden. Ann has provided training and consultation to government agencies and community programs around the world, including the National Institute of Corrections, the Urban Institute, and even Sesame Street's Little Children, Big Challenges, their initiative on incarceration. She is a published scholar and was honored by the Obama White House in 2013 as a champion of change for her work with children and families of the incarcerated. We'll then hear from Jennifer Robinson. Deputy Commissioner of Temporary Assistance at the Onondaga County, that's in New York, Department of Social Services, Economic Security. That one was a mouthful, Jennifer. Jennifer has worked with the department for 30 years and currently oversees a division of 200 employees. She was an eligibility worker for many years and was privileged to work with individuals on a need on a daily basis. We'll then hear from Monica Madaris, Assistant Administrator for Reach Up Economic Services Division at the Vermont Department of Children and Families. Monica served as an Assistant Administrator of Reach Up, which by the way is Vermont's Tanf program, which I'm sure she'll remind you a little bit later, for over 6 years. She's passionate about supporting families and helping to create communities where everyone is valued. And then finally, we'll hear from Heather Newcomb, Women's Program Manager at Vermont Works for Women. Heather plays a lead role with programs for incarcerated women during both incarceration and in reentry. She has overcome many of the same barriers her clients face and aims to ignite motivation and manifest hope. She's an advocate for strong communities where all members thrive and advocates for those who lack a voice of their own. Next slide. So here's our first poll, which I'll read and invite you to respond to. What are the biggest challenges facing reentering moms? And you can check all that apply. Securing employment, housing, reunifying with their children, navigating program requirements, or other, which you can specify. So we'll give you a few moments to respond. All right. Well, not surprisingly, we have almost kind of an even grouping of folks thinking that, to be frank, all of these apply. Whether it's employment, housing, reunifying with your kids, or just navigating the systems one has to navigate in reentry. Thank you. So without further ado, let's move to the next slide, and I'm going to turn things over to our first presenter, Anne.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everyone. A big thanks to all of you for organizing this and inviting me to participate in this really important work. So I'm going to jump right in and begin with a favorite quote of mine, "Knowing yourself is the beginning of all wisdom," by Aristotle, because I want us to begin by thinking about what we bring to this task. Okay, are you seeing my screen? Sorry guys, but I'm not.
Yes.
Yes, we are.
I just lost my PowerPoints, I'm sorry.
No worries, and if you can't see your slides, we can have Steve or Sujita pull up the slides, and you can just cue verbally when you need to have the slides shift.
Yes, I know, but I need to see them or I won't. I don't understand why all of a sudden I stopped seeing my screen. Okay. There we go. Thank you. We'll begin with this quote because I think it's really important for everyone to think about and talk about what you bring to this discussion. We all bring a variety of experiences that color and shade our assumptions, our opinions, and most important, our discretionary decision-making process that happens in this work. So next slide. To that end, I want you to take a quick look at this picture and think loudly in your own head, what do you see? And most people will say they see a mom going crazy because the kids are fighting. That's not what you see. What you see is a woman holding her head in her hands and two kids with their hands on each other's shoulders. And the interpretation of that is a mom going crazy. A gentleman in a training not too long ago said, oh, what he saw was a mom upset because she'd spent a lot of money on dancing lessons for her son and daughter and they weren't practicing it well because that had happened to him. So in all of this work, particularly with families involved with the criminal legal system, what you see is important, what you interpret by what you see is more important, and then who do you identify with? Are you identifying with the incarcerated parent, the caregiver, the children? And we all have those knee-jerk tendencies that have to be recognized as we do this work. So now we're going to move to the facts from sort of the thought process of each of us. And I encourage you, I'm going to go through these slides very quickly, and I encourage you to dig in at your leisure. The Prison Policy Initiative is a good place. But what we know is that 2 million women or so are incarcerated in the US. 80% of them are moms. Let me just say we have no really good method of gathering data. No one systematically gathers data about how many women or men are parents. But we do know from older research the federal government has done and newer sort of assessments done by using a formula and random sampling that most women say that they were the primary caregivers and or 77% roughly state that they had provided most of the daily care. I do want to suggest that for the future we have to define primary caregiver because that's really a difficult label. Is it a legal statement? Is it who does what to whom? And it matters in some policy decision making. An estimated 58,000 women a year are pregnant when they enter local jails, and that's important because we've got a lot of babies that are not, remaining with their parents since most of our facilities do not include prison nurseries. Next slide. What we also know, next slide, is, and what's really important is where are these kids? We know that most incarcerated mothers' children are living with grandparents, but as you can see in the first graph on the left, some and an increasing number, now it's almost 50%, I hear, of children of incarcerated mothers are living with the other parent. And that can be fathers or it can be another mother. The next, the number that comes next is grandparents, typically maternal grandparents, and then other relatives, whether that's a formal arrangement or not. Foster care is hovering around 10%, and friends and other is much less than 10%. Next slide. What we know is that most children of incarcerated mothers were living with their mothers at some point within a year before their incarceration, and that they are more likely to have lived in multi-generational households than children of incarcerated fathers. There's a heightened chance for children with incarcerated mothers that their fathers have also been incarcerated. And then this last piece is one that we're really looking at more and more based on some work by people like Joyce Arditi and ethnographic studies, that maternal distress for incarcerated mothers is really linked to depression, to lowered parental identity, a sense of themselves as diminished, the sense of themselves as a parent, and can lead to self-motivated estrangement post-release, and also can lead to a real lack of connection to children. Next slide. And who are these kids? 50% of them are under 9, which is really important since we're also seeing that most of the programmatic responses are for adolescents and pre-adolescents. Next slide. We know there's economic strain. An old study from 2008 says it's 25% decrease in income for incarcerated parents, both men and women. There's not a lot of good research that delineates men versus women and the economic strain, but we also know that the newer studies in 2018 have increased it to almost 50% of economic decline after incarceration. Next slide. So we know that given this economic and emotional role that women play, it's really important to know that there is going to be severe increase in material hardship for families of incarcerated mothers. And indeed, most of the research points to that hardship leading at some point to child welfare involvement. Next slide. We know that only 2% of incarcerated fathers report that their kids are in child welfare, but 10% of the mothers do. But if you look at the kids entering child welfare system, almost 20, maybe even close to 25% of them have an incarcerated parent. So they risk losing their parental rights at much greater rates than non-incarcerated parents do because of length of sentences and because of the timeline of children not being able to be in foster care for more than 15 out of 22 months. And then one more recent study looked at, tells us that about 40% of kids have experienced both foster care and parental incarceration in their lifetime. Next slide. I want to look for a minute at why kids go into child welfare, because most people think that it's because of abuse or neglect. When I ask this question randomly, what percentage do you think people think it's pretty high? If you click on it, you'll see that it's only about 3%. Click on it, please. And as a direct result of placement needs, parent gets arrested, we need to get this child placed. Click on it, please. If you guess, but it's really only about 7%. So 10% of these kids are going into child welfare because of direct abuse, neglect, or placement needs. And the rest is indirect, related to the instability, economic, social support, lack of stability, and stress for the caregivers. Really important when we start talking about TANF. And concerns, if you click, that a lot of the researchers, a particularly good article by Berger, are looking at the differential levels of surveillance and monitoring for low-income families of color. Keep that thought in your mind. And then the next concern is that, if you click, the use of criminal justice involvement is a marker for abuse and neglect substantiation, even if that criminal justice involvement is check fraud and not related to children. So keeping children out of child welfare when it isn't necessary is something that advocates are trying to work on, that balancing act. Next slide. But we know that the impact is largely emotional. And we were thrilled back in 2005, 2006, when the Adverse Childhood Experiences study highlighted that incarcerated household member was an ACE. Because now maybe we would see these kids as victims, kind of, or that they have experienced trauma, and not that just the apple doesn't fall far from the tree and they're just bad kids. But if you look at this list, the framework was abuse, neglect, child maltreatment, and family dysfunction. Next slide. That was really causing a conflict because it was flying in the face of reunification advocacy efforts. If these kids are harmed by their parents, why would we want to try to work on connecting them with their parents? So I was thrilled that the CDC reframed it recently to talk about, yes, there's abuse and neglect in that small percentage of those cases, but the rest of these issues are being called household challenges, including incarceration. Next slide. And why it matters is the key to all of this. The brain gets flooded with cortisol that causes behavioral problems like impulse control and emotional regulation, that causes mental health diagnoses to flourish, that causes school dropout rates, that causes gang involvement and early pregnancies coming from attachment needs, and it leads to self-medication in the wake of this trauma and toxic stress. This is key. Next slide, please, because this toxic stress is rampant in the criminal legal system. It is about poverty, it is about separation and loss, and it is about the stress of the criminal legal system. Next slide. So we've added a lot more ACEs, such as poverty and racism. Next slide. And the American Academy of Pediatrics has added racism as a key element of trauma. And remember that 70% of children with incarcerated parents are children of color. So having racism, structural and institutional racism as causing trauma is really important. Next slide. Witnessing the arrest of a parent is additionally traumatic, and there's some evidence that children of incarcerated mothers will witness the arrest of parents more often than children of incarcerated fathers. Stands to reason that they're with their mothers. And there's more post-traumatic stress disorders diagnosed with children who witness the arrest of the parent. Next slide. And children of incarcerated parents with incarcerated parents are 5 times more likely to have other ACEs. So the ACEs are clustered and children are seriously impacted. Okay, now the next slide is why we're here, because there is good stuff. Our former Surgeon General David Satcher says that risk factors are not predictive factors because of protective factors. Next slide. What are the protective factors? Well, mothers. The returning mothers are the #1 protective factors. It's in all the research that those parents are the buffers from the most damaging aspects of trauma. But when moms get out, they're that person in the middle here being torn between the parole and child welfare requirements and what the children need from them, and neither side are going to wait for them. Next slide. Kids aren't going to wait while you do your parole officer, and the parole officer and child welfare aren't going to wait while you tend to your kids. The caregivers, the primary caregivers, are protective factors, whether or not that's the returning parent. There's not a lot of good research. It's the sort of desert of research on caregivers, but we know that financial hardship and shame and stigma are at the top of the list. And as I said earlier, it's that stress that causes their involvement, the kids' involvement in child welfare. So when the moms get out, often the children have been placed in care because of consequences of the hardship on the caregivers. But also in our technical assistance this year to Second Chance Act grantees, we're finding that it's the same obstacles faced by returning moms: financial hardship, shame and stigma, elevated levels of emotional stress, strains on relationships, adding to housing instability, food insecurity, and employment limitations. Next slide. So what about their supports? This lack of clarity between child maltreatment and endangerment and household challenge is a problem, because people think that having an incarcerated parent or a returning parent with a record could be a mandated report, which is not true. There's a diagnostic dilemma, so kids have to get diagnosed with mental health disorders in order to get services. And so then schools and healthcare are seen by returning moms as surveillance institutions, and it worries them. The shame and stigma forces them to avoid those institutions, avoiding help. There's a lack of evidence-based models for work with families with returning moms, and the adaptations and relevant designs are minimal for work with families. So I'm thrilled to hear about Tanf models that are relevant to this population. Nothing about us without us is an emerging concept, which means involving those people that this is about right from the beginning in defining the problem and designing the solution. And it's just emerging. We're still struggling with how to do that, particularly with returning parents. And the next slide. So these are considered the main protective factors in protecting kids from trauma: building skills and confidence, supporting emotional competence, allowing influence and participation, minimizing anxiety and uncertainty, and strengthening the parent-child relationship. All of these things can be a scaffolding of sorts that's provided when financial aid is in play. Skill building programs can build emotional competence, allowing them to have a say, parents that is, and minimizing the anxiety and uncertainty for children, which strengthens the relationships. So, I see that as an overarching role of TANF and financial and sort of job support for families. And I'm just going to share, next slide, one quick story. A woman who was on a panel with me in California a couple years ago, who re-entered with 2 kids. She did all the programming, she got her kids back, she was doing great, but her job was really not making ends meet. She had to take a second job. She had to work at night and leave her kids alone. She did get reported to Child Protective Services once because the kids were only 12 and 9. And so she had to hire a sitter. But then she ended up one day when a child came home and asked for money for a field trip, she didn't have it. And she talked very emotionally about knowing exactly what she had to do. And she wasn't going to let her kid not go on the field trip. So she went out and prostituted herself, which is how she could make fast money. And it worked. And the kid went on his field trip and was really happy until the next time she did it again, and the 3rd time. And the 4th time she got caught and went back to prison. So I think I've heard that story in some version or another many, many times. I appreciate your patience with the technology as I race through these slides, but I am thrilled to be able to think about what TANF can do to sort of support parents to be the protective factors that they need to be in the face of this trauma.
Thank you so much, Anne. That was an extraordinary amount of information that I know is incredibly useful to everyone listening to set the foundation for our next speakers. But before we move on, we're going to do another quick poll. So this says, what role do you think TANF agencies can play in supporting reentering moms? And please just select one this time: providing financial assistance, funding reentry programs, providing employment and training assistance, or other. You can please specify that. I'll give you a few moments to respond. So we looks like most people, not quite half, think that providing employment and training assistance is an important role for TANF to play, followed by providing financial assistance. Thank you. So we're now going to hear from 2 TANF programs and learn a little bit about what they've done to support reentering moms. And we'll start with Jennifer from New York.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this important conversation. Next slide, please. Onondaga County is located right in central New York, and we are very lucky to have some different supports in this state. So in New York State, temporary assistance is funded with federal, state, and local funds. We have 2 categories of temporary assistance. We have family assistance and we have safety net assistance. So I'm really quickly going to go through those 2 programs so you can differentiate some of the information I'm going to give you in a few minutes. There are common eligibility factors for both family assistance and safety net. Those common eligibility factors are the household composition, household income. We look at residency. You must live in the county in which you're applying. There's citizenship status requirements. There's compliance with employability requirements, and then we have program regulations. So that is the same with both categories of temporary assistance. Next slide, please. Safety net assistance is for single adults, including re-entering mothers. Re-entering mothers who are released from incarceration are considered single adults until they are reunified with their children. Safety net assistance also encompasses childless couples, families that have the head of household is found to be abusing drugs or alcohol, families who have exceeded the 60-month federal TANF limit. There is a 24-month limit on safety net assistance, and there's a 45-day wait for safety net assistance eligibility. So that's important to keep in mind. Next slide, please. Now, family assistance is operated under Tanf. This are the households that includes the minor children or a child in care of a relative. And there's the 60-month limit on federal Tanf, which you all know. Next slide, please. So pre-release, our agency will take an application for anyone incarcerated. So it is women with children and or single men. So this pre-release process is good for anyone coming out of prison in Onondaga County. So the facility will submit a completed temporary assistance application. Our temporary assistance applications are good for temporary assistance, SNAP benefits, emergency benefits, and medical assistance. We will date the application the day we receive it, and that will reduce the 45-day wait for safety net assistance while the parent is awaiting release from the jail. This application is available in numerous languages. It is unique to New York State. The reason that we are allowed to do the safety net assistance program is because our state funds it. There's very few states that will fund a safety net assistance program that will cover single or childless adults. So this will help mom, while she is not in possession of her children, to start rebuilding her life and start rebuilding her post-jail experience while she awaits hopefully being reunified with her children. Upon release, the applicant will have an eligibility interview that can either be in person or over the telephone at this time. During that eligibility interview, we will talk about where her children are, whether child welfare is involved, will help her set up a place to live. Sometimes the parole or the Department of Corrections has already secured an apartment or a living situation for this person. So we will then help her move in. We'll pay the security deposit, we'll pay the first month's rent while she's awaiting her eligibility for public assistance for ongoing help with that housing expense. We will also have homeless shelters available. In Onondaga County, we are very lucky to have several shelters to help our homeless population. We have some that are strictly for men, we have some that are strictly for women, and we have shelters that are strictly for families, so that we can meet the need of each individual person where they're at. At the eligibility interview, we will issue SNAP benefits if eligible. We'll also issue temporary medical assistance so that the released individual can start receiving some medical care if needed. So mom will remain safety net until she's reunited with her children. Next slide, please. Post-release, we will start assisting mom with self-sufficiency. We do that by employment coaching. We work very, very closely with an employment agency. They are actually in-house. It's a team of 99 people. And they take each individual participant and talk about their goals. Can you go to work? Do you need possible medical assistance? Do you need substance abuse treatment? Is there a physical barrier to working? What is the barrier, if there are any, to becoming self-sufficient? And the Jobs Employment Agency will assist with this. We will do employment coaching, help with resume building. We have very close connections with many of our local employers, big employers. So we can refer to these employers in helping this person have a job lead. And we can also put in a word for them. We can be activists on their part, so that just because they're incarcerated, it doesn't mean they're not hireable or they're not a desirable candidate for employment. And then, like I said, for substance abuse, we'll get them in treatment. We'll follow their treatment. We'll talk to them about any barriers to their treatment. We will continue to help them obtain affordable housing. And we look at the affordable housing based on their household size. If mom has 2 children that could potentially be returned to her within 30 days, we're going to help her get a house or apartment large enough to accommodate that family size, so they're not all cramped into a little single apartment, 1-bedroom apartment that mom might be able to normally afford on her own. We also have parole officers right on site. Our office is located right in central downtown, so our parole officers are right here. If we have any questions, or if mom needs any assistance maneuvering her parole responsibilities, we can help with that. We can just call right over, walk right over to our parole division and work with our corrections officers for assistance as needed. Next slide, please. So once mom is reunited with her children and they're all living together under one roof, we are going to change mom from safety net to TANF funded family assistance. This will continue to pay her housing up to the allotted TANF funds. We also provide health and safety vouchers so that the family can have safe bedding, possibly a kitchen table, just things, necessities that she would need to provide her children with a safe, comfortable living space. So other than that, then for future goals for our TANF population is this 2-generation approach that we are working on. We believe that, as we all know, poverty is generational. Usually if you look back, it's going back 3 generations now at this point. And I've been here long enough that I am seeing children of my previous clientele and sometimes their grandchildren. And how do we break that cycle? So we need to do a more comprehensive approach with these families and start working on getting the children good schooling, getting them good medical care, getting them vaccinated, getting moms every benefit they're entitled to, including WIC, any vaccine clinic if they don't have a primary care, getting them into a primary care. So our 2-generation approach, it was put on hold last year because of COVID, but we're starting to get back in the swing of things this year. We have specialized workers and specialized employment workers who are going to work a little bit closer with these families, and we're going to meet them where they're at. Maybe they can't come into the office between our regular hours, 8 to 4, because they're working themselves. We're going to go into the community, have an evening clinic or have a Saturday clinic where we can give the children pizza and keep them occupied while mom either works on getting a better job or training. So that's very exciting. We're looking for that in the future. I'm very excited about that. Plus, because we have the safety net available to us, after the 60 months of TANF, mom can switch back to safety net with the children. So all we do is have a category change. Mom feels no difference in her benefits. It's just a code change on our end, and just the funding source is different. So if mom and the family are having a hard time getting their self-sufficiency in order after 60 months, we're still there for them. We'll put them into safety net, change their category, continue employment coaching, continue medical support if needed, and hopefully just keep working with them until they're self-sufficient, which is our ultimate goal and then the children are safe, and hopefully there's no recidivism in this family. So that's what we have going on here in New York. I'd be curious to know who else has a safety net program. Last I knew, it was only one other state. So if you can hit me up in the chat or private message, I'd be interested in hearing that. But thank you for joining, and thank you for your attention today.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was incredibly helpful to sort of hear both the process along with what services are available at different points in your program. So we are going to now hear from Monica from the state of Vermont. Welcome, Monica.
Thank you so much, and thank you for this opportunity. I'm very happy to be here and sharing some of the great programs we have in Vermont for mothers who are re-entering. So TANF in Vermont is known as Reach Up, and you might notice during the presentation that I refer to TANF as Reach Up. The next slide, please. So I would like to start by sharing some information about the Lund residential program. So Lund's residential treatment program supports women in the development of strong, healthy families. Lund is the only place in Vermont where moms can engage in treatment while living with their children. It is also available to mothers as a diversion from prison, or mothers who have babies in prison may be released to Lund. So the Reach Up program, or TANF, contracts with Lund, and we can help pay the participants room and board fees for 26 women at a time. And then Medicaid helps fund the treatment costs. Therefore, the participants who are in treatment only have to contribute very little or nothing to be able to take advantage of this program. Next slide, please. So at Lund, women and children receive a broad range of services and supports. For example, case management, education, substance abuse and mental health treatment, just to name a few. Women, their children, and the providers work together on treatment goals in 5 areas, which would be clinical treatment, parent education, health and wellness, life skills, and education and vocational development. During the treatment, women engage in both individual and group work with the providers to achieve their goals. And the team develops an individual plan that coordinates all services appropriate to the family's needs. Women are matched with a peer mentor to help them acclimate to the program. The residential counseling team is available at all times to guide the family through the process. And staff assist in addressing barriers to treatment. Many women choose to participate in Lund's on-site employment training program during treatment to gain skills that will help them in their job search after leaving Lund. Next slide, please. And then the transitioning. So transition planning begins very early in the process, and women leave with established connections to community resources. Many women continue to access Lund support even after leaving the program, and some of the supports that are available are aftercare groups, individual outpatient substance abuse counseling, ongoing case management, and family education services. So that's our Lund program. Next slide, please. And then we also have moms. So the next program is the Moms Partnership we have that I would like to tell you about. So MOMS stands for Mental Health Outreach for Mothers. The program started in New Haven, Connecticut by Yale University's Psychiatry Department. It brings mental health services to moms, including reentering moms, pregnant women, and the community. The goal of the program is to address depression, stress, and create better outcomes for moms and their children. Next slide, please. So what is unique about the Moms Partnership? While it is a program that's built with moms specifically for TANF participants, a mom with lived experience is a paid mentor. They use an 8-week cohort model to address maternal depression for moms with children of all ages. The course covers steps for problem solving, communication styles, balancing stress and fun, and relaxation tips. The program also offers free supervised activities and snacks for children while mom is in the class. And next slide, please. So some of the recent outcomes show a great increase in mental health treatment engagement, a decrease in depression, an increase in school attendance for children, and also an increase in work activities for moms who participate in the Moms Partnership. So overall, really great outcomes so far. Next slide, please. And then our Reach Up program. So lastly, I just wanted to mention some of the great things that we were able to implement in the Reach Up or TANF program that really support participants, including reentering women. The mission of our program, which is Reach Up joins families to overcome obstacles, explore opportunities, improve their finances, and reach their goals, have really guided us to be more family-focused and participant goal-oriented. This seems to be very helpful to all participants, but especially beneficial for moms reentering. We can really help them set their own goals and assist them along the way. It is a non-intrusive, not overwhelming process. We also have rules in place that allow the parent to be out of the home. Oh, I'm sorry, next slide, please. Thank you. So we also have some rules in place that allow the parent to be out of the home, but continue to receive Reach Up benefits. If mom has a short prison term, she can continue to receive Reach Up benefits for 30 days. If she's going to be out of the home for longer than 30 days, a caretaker for the children can receive the Reach Up benefits. And in some situations, the same caretaker could also be named as a payee, which would allow the caretaker to receive benefits for mom, and the funds can be used to help maintain the home where mom would return to. And I think that's all I had time to share, but we're always looking for ways to improve our program and looking forward to continue to work on better assisting women reentering. So thank you for this opportunity again.
Thank you so much, Monica, again, for sharing both the process and form, the services, so that folks can understand what they are and sort of walking us through what that process looks like. So you guys are very timely. And last but not least, we have Heather. Heather?
Yes, thank you, everybody. I'm Excited to join you today and share a little bit about Vermont Works for Women and our programs for justice-involved women. Next slide, please. Just a little blurb about me. I will save that for those of you who review the slides when the replay comes out. Next slide, please. And for Vermont Works for Women, our organization as a whole, I just included our mission and our vision. We also have programming ranging from middle school age women and non-binary through our women's programming. Next slide, please. And these are the values that really drive us in our program design and service delivery. Next slide. So specifically today, I wanted to talk about our programs for justice impacted women. Vermont Works for Women contracts with Department of Corrections to lead a career resource and reentry center at the Chittenden Regional Correctional Facility. It is the only women's facility in the state of Vermont, so all women incarcerated are housed in this one facility. And Vermont Works for Women provides the programming for career and employment training, exploration, and reentry planning for successful reintegration in the community. We do that through a variety of ways, providing vocational training. We are piloting a culinary program that will be launching this fall to capture culinary training and certifications in that industry. We also run a Trailblazers program, which is a pre-apprenticeship into the trades, electrical, plumbing, and construction. And we have an exciting partnership with Champlain College, developing some augmented reality to really enhance that training, especially when there are safety risks. So for example, with the culinary program, we can use this augmented reality for knife skills training, and there's not the risk of an incarcerated woman possibly using that knife as a weapon. Through augmented reality, they can use something harmless like a pen as the implement instead of a knife, and we can teach skills such as butchering, for example. We also do a lot of life skills training and executive function building. Vermont Works for Women belongs to the Mobility Mentoring Exchange Network, and this is an evidence-based coaching model that supports the transition out of poverty into economic independence. And it is a trauma-informed, gender-responsive model developed by Empath in Boston, and they have an international network of members that belong to this exchange to really share that best practices and whatnot. We also talk a lot about transferable skills from life experiences. I think Anne said it best. Through life experiences, we learn such things as resilience and determination and perseverance, especially people who are in recovery. Our addiction, when we were in active addiction, I tell you, addicts really have a goal-oriented mindset, and we can use that same skill in a different environment, and that leads to success. We also provide career coaching, and we do this in alignment with an individual's strengths and what their core expression is. We work really hard on developing that defined self-image and helping clients understand that awareness between their core wounds and their core expression so they can find employment that is both fulfilling and meaningful and something they're excited to go to and engage with every day. Next slide, please. We also support the women through the reentry transition, providing that transitional assistance. So one of the things we do pre-incarceration is come up with a job search strategy. And then on the reentry side, we help support that implementation of that strategy. So immediately upon release, we provide a care package that includes necessary clothing, hygiene products, a cell phone that has internet connection. And we also have a library of Chromebooks that we can lend out for that job search, especially since a lot of employers today only accept online applications. We provide that emotional support because reentering can be immensely stressful, and we continue using that mobility mentoring model to continue coaching that economic independence and self-sufficiency. Another thing we do is we have a lot of relationships with local employers, and our employers that we network with are already second chance friendly. Many of them don't implement background checks, or if they do, it's not an automatic disqualifier for applicants applying to work. We are a member of the Recovery Friendly Workplace Roundtable, which is a local group, statewide group actually, of employers who are recovery friendly workplaces. Many of them have peer mentors on staff or recovery coaches on staff to continue supporting their employees who are in recovery. Next slide, please. So I'd like to tell you a little bit about Tiffany. We have been working with Tiffany for over 2 years now, and it began while Tiffany was incarcerated and about to give birth to her son, Kaiseya. We supported Tiffany with her admissions to Lund. We worked with her on easing anxiety and practice over the interview process. And also for Tiffany's case, we needed to appeal her admission, tracking down some missing psychosocial assessments that Lund needed before they could admit her into the program. Thankfully, she was admitted. While she was residing at Lund, we continued providing that coordinated team approach with Lund and other providers, providing those soft supports, coaching Tiffany for continued confidence, goal setting, and empowerment. After graduating, we continued supporting Tiffany through transitional assistance with financial planning and employment plans now that she has transitioned into her own apartment. And now let's hear from Tiffany directly, sharing her story.
Hi, my name is Tiffany, and I'm just here to talk to you a little bit about Reach Up. I recently graduated from the Lund residential program, and that was instrumental in helping me reunify with my baby after I was incarcerated. And I was able to get full custody of him while I was at Lund. While I was at Lund, I began meeting with a Reach Up worker on a monthly basis. She even came to my team meetings, my status meetings every month, and she helped me gain stability and prepare for independence. Basically anything that was in my way to gain independence or to start working or whatever, she was someone that was going to try to help me overcome those obstacles in any way she could. And I meet with her to this day. I still meet with her. My Reach Up has allowed me to maintain my own apartment. I love being in my own apartment, and that's Reach Up is my income right now while I'm looking for full-time employment. In addition to full custody of my 18-month-old, I have also regained custody of my 15-year-old, and my other children are now adults, and they visit us daily. Reach Up helps me maintain my cell phone and my utility bills, and it's also flexible spending for necessary items that are not covered by food stamps, like diapers and wipes, hygiene, etc. If I didn't have my Reach Up, I would not have access to the employment specialty services, Ready to Ride, any of these specialized services that help me find employment and gain employment and keep employment. I would not have access to. I would not have my children because there'd be no way for me to support them while I'm trying to find a job. I wouldn't have a place to live. So I would definitely not have my kids with me. I wouldn't be able to buy them anything that they needed. So basically, Reach Up is an extremely important program, and it is instrumental to me just living my life and having my family with me. And I'm a single mom, and I really appreciate Reach Up. Thanks.
Next slide, please. So in supporting moms, I just want to encourage providers who are listening to not make assumptions. And that providers also need to prioritize the mother-child relationship. So as an employment coach, I want to make sure I know when that mom is spending time with their children so that employment doesn't interfere with that time. We want to support that reconnection. We want to consider work schedules and visitation schedules to preserve that relationship so that these children can have that stable relationship and not be impacted by as many traumatic events. Assist with setting priorities. The effects of trauma, many of these moms have a history of trauma. So understanding the effects of trauma and those the impacts and that pattern of crisis management really impacts their ability to set priorities in a long vision framework. Please be kind and understanding. Let's expand their awareness. Many times they don't have context of what it means to be financially secure or preparing for middle class activities. They just don't have that awareness. Actively listen to your clients and confirm what their meaning and intentions are. I often say with clients, you know, there's a big difference between intention versus impact. And actively listening and communicating clearly with clients you can understand their meaning and their intention. Also want you to encourage practicing radical acceptance. Lose your judgments. You have not walked a mile in their shoes, and they are the experts on their own lives. So speak with clarity and honesty. Next slide, please. It's really important to help clients know their strengths so they can focus on their assets. Leaving incarceration leaves them with a clear picture of what it is they don't want in their life, but that's not enough. In order to be successful, you need to have just as clear a vision for what you do want in your life so that you can determine the direction that is going to get you there. Help clients expand their self-awareness, understand their patterns, and understand whether those patterns were derived from a core wound and whether that still serves them in their new life. Rebuild relationships that are healthy and not codependent. Many women who have experienced trauma have codependent relationships. Help them understand what the components of healthy relationships are so that they can rebuild those relationships in healthy ways. Goal setting is magical. Helping someone to goal set and then follow through that attainment really builds the foundation for success and gives them motivation to then set the next goal. Building a strong network of support systems is really important. Not being sucked back into dysfunctional networks from the past, but building new supports. There's a program in Vermont called COSA, Circle of Support and Accountability, run through the Community Justice Center. I always encourage clients to apply for that because it automatically gives them 3 to 4 people in their own community that already has an established network that they can tap into. Talk to them about their transferable skills. Help them to understand that even if they don't have an employment history, You have skills that we can highlight on a resume. We develop strength-based resumes in our program, and some of the women are so surprised that I don't even have enough room to put all their strengths on the resume. And that gets them excited to use that resume once they get released. I want to thank you for your time today and allowing me to present. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heather, particularly for your empowering slides and strategies and suggestions, and also for Tiffany for sharing her story so eloquently and sharing the impact that your program has had with her. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah, there we go. So we're going to open it up to some questions and answers. I've already seen many actually that have come through the Q&A. So please take a moment if you haven't already, if you do have a question, to put it into the platform. If it's actually a question for a specific presenter, please add their name so we know to direct it to them. And as these start to come in, I just wanted to say thank you again to our panelists. You know, this was a fantastic session for a lot of reasons, but one of them was this mix that you guys provided of both research and foundation understanding some of the prevalence, with some real world tips and suggestions and strategies, not only from a programmatic level, but in the individual person-to-person engagement. You've talked about 2-generation strategies and supporting whole families. You've talked about with us, oh, I always mess that one up, Anne, but really engaging with individuals' lived experience, not just in hearing their stories, but in the actual implementation and design of the programs that are touching them. And so it was really just exciting to hear the different aspects with which you guys are taking this important topic on. So with that in mind, Anne, we had a few questions that came in for you. So since you got to go first, I'm coming back to you. And the first was, any books, publications that you'd recommend for the audience that might help them better inform themselves about this topic? I know that's kind of a big one, but I suspect you have a few things that you can share.
Wow. Yeah, the problem is getting them on the tip of my tongue.
Top
of my head. Turning 70 is horrible for memory. The handbook, Julie Pullman-Tynan and Mark Eddy, other people editing the handbook on children of incarcerated parents, 2 editions, are probably, you know, sort of great up-to-date research. I love Sylvia Harvey's book, and I'm going to blank on the topic. I use it as a textbook, which I'm serious, makes me really frustrated that I can't think of the name of it. I'll Google it in a minute, but it's a new book. It's from a year ago or so. It follows 3 families in 3 different states. It's not just mothers. One of the big issues is finding good information that's just about incarcerated and reentering mothers. And it's funny because a lot of the foundations only want to fund programs for incarcerated mothers and reentering mothers, but there's not a lot of funding for evaluation and research on those programs. So that's tough. I will actually think about it and put together a couple of suggestions that I can share with the webinar designers, and maybe you could get it out to people because it's a great question.
Thank you, Anne. So before I go to the next one and be teed up, because the next one was for you too, I know that as the video was sharing, Heather, during your session, that the tech might have not worked for some people, maybe audio or even video looked a little bit off. And so we're looking into making sure that everyone can have access to that video by sharing it with those who've registered, just so you know. So Anne, the next question, and you kind of just touched on it a little bit about, you know, where there might be gaps in research, but you shared that quite a bit of research on, you know, the prevalence and impacts of incarceration on moms. Could you share what research you might be aware of on sort of the impacts of reentry programs? Like what's working out there?
Well, I would look at the National Reentry Resource Center and look at their research section, because I think if stuff is going to be posted, it will be there. I know that I'm finishing up a curriculum right now called Reentry Parenting for an organization in California, and we're just in the last stages of the pilot. It is only at this point for fathers, but will be adapted to moms. And it's the only one of its kind. It is a parenting curriculum specifically for people reentering. All the things that happen when you're home with those kids and you've just gotten out of prison or jail are in this curriculum, rather than trying to adapt a different kind of curriculum for this population. So in looking at developing that, I really couldn't find a whole lot of good research about reentry, but the National Reentry Resource Center is the only place that's going to put that stuff in one place. And it's the shadow system. Sylvia Harvey's book is called The Shadow System.
There you go.
Yeah.
So the next question, Jennifer, came in while you were doing your presentation, which was so informative. Can you confirm, is the safety net assistance program that you spoke about, is that only for women?
No, the safety net assistance program is for any individual in New York State who may qualify. But it's particularly useful for women because we can get in contact with them quicker and enable them support prior to having their children returned to them if needed.
So this is another one for you, Jennifer. We got a lot of positive feedback about the strategies and things that you guys had shared in terms of what you're doing in New York. And one of the questions that came in has to do with, for those who are outside of New York, like what would you say are sort of some of the key things that they can take away to their own states?
Oh, that's tough. Like I said, we're very lucky in New York that we have that support of our state, of our governor, who has implemented assistance. I would say just try to work with nonprofits as much as possible. Nonprofits are a huge part of our organization. Nonprofits, faith-based organizations, they usually have a lot of supports available to various populations.
Jennifer, I think we have one more for you. You had mentioned that there was another state that also has a state net program. Do you recall which one it was?
I think it's California, and I thought Pennsylvania was toying with it, but I don't know that they ever got funding for it. It's a huge lift on the state. It's a lot of money that's not reimbursed, whereas TANF is federally reimbursed to some level. The safety net is full state funding, so it would require the support of your state leaders.
Gotcha. So another question that came in, and actually this is both for Jennifer and Monica. How long have the services that you guys have been providing to reentering moms been in place? And have you sort of seen any changes over time in terms of what services might be needed? Maybe Monica, you could go first.
Sure. So our contract with the Lund residential program has been ongoing for, I want to say, at least 10 years, but I'm thinking more 15, 20. It's been very successful. When funds are tight, it is a program that gets questioned in legislation to see if there's any way to maybe decrease it, but it has never been cut or decreased because it is a great investment in the participants, and people leaving Lund or women leaving Lund are really living a successful life after. So it's been an amazing program, and I don't think it's going anywhere. Our Moms Partnership is new. It's we've only have done it for a year, but again, because it is so successful, we are looking to expand it through all of Vermont and all of our district offices.
Here in Onondaga, we've been doing the reentry program for about 15 years now, and it has only evolved and gotten better over time. We've become more accustomed to it. Because Safety Net is state funded, there was an old mind frame that said deny, just deny and save the state money. So it's been a systematic change of the way our employees think, where we're here to help. We're not here to just deny on a technicality. Men, women, moms, we have to help our community to become self-sufficient. We're only as good as our fellow community members. So that's been the change, and it's been very successful in the last 5 years. It's taken a long time. It took a lot of old people to retire to get the new blood in, to get this new mindset going, but it's very successful in getting these supports, and we're seeing a lot of success of having the moms reunited with their children in safe housing, getting safe bedding, getting a kitchen table to eat around, or that the child can do their homework on. So it's been very successful, and as Monica said, there's been push to eliminate it, but we have the stats, the statistics to back it up. We show that our moms are getting employed. They are getting off TANF and not coming back to apply. So it's been pretty successful.
So Heather, next question's for you. This listener was interested in finding out where they could get more information about the COSA program and community justice centers. Any thoughts?
Absolutely. If they Google community justice centers in Vermont, that will bring them to a website where every county in Vermont has a community justice center. In Chittenden County, where I live, we actually have 4 community justice centers. So some towns have their own individual community justice center, and all, I think there's 15 throughout the state, and all community justice centers have COSA programs. So if they reach out to their closest community justice center, and they're always looking for volunteers to be on COSA teams.
So this next one is actually for Heather, Monica, and Jennifer in different ways. And it's coming from a community-based reentry service provider. And they were hoping to hear from, I guess, each of you from your vantage points about more information about how TANF can partner with community reentry programs to help moms succeed. In other words, they're kind of hoping to know more about like what they as a nonprofit can do or should do to better engage with TANF. Like what recommendations do you have? Let's give you a second. Would Monica or Jennifer like to start?
From what I think is just make sure that your population is getting connected with TANF. A lot of people aren't applying. I mean, we're down to a fraction of our old caseload, primarily because of the eviction moratorium that we have here in New York State right now. That's played a large part in our reduced caseloads. But we need to be connected with these clients to get them services, and any assistance you can give to maybe help them navigate the system would be great. They don't always come to us saying they're confused or they don't know what is needed, and it'll just get stressed out and, you know, say if it's not worth it. So keeping them engaged and in contact with us would be a big help to both us and serving this population.
Yes, I can definitely echo that. It is, it's a very stressful time for women, and the more support, the wraparound support can be offered, the better. If you can simplify the application process, or have one application for multiple programs, it's always better. And simultaneously just making sure that the children are also being taken care of. As it was mentioned previously in the presentation, two-generational approach, it's making sure that the kiddos are in a safe and secure and loving places, and helping the moms being able to provide that for their children is very important.
And I would just add that, you know, many of the clients I work with then work with Tanf or reach up in our state. And ways that I collaborate is sometimes meetings with me, you know, we'll meet program requirements. You know, if there is a work eligibility or some other activity requirement for the program, oftentimes working with Vermont Works for Women will meet that requirement, and I'll communicate with caseworkers, you know, what goals we've set, how many hours we spent together, and activities we have planned that progress that employment plan even further. And just make sure that we work in a collaborative way so that, you know, a client's not getting one employment plan from Reach Up and Tanf, but we have a whole separate employment plan at Vermont Works for Women. Make sure the employment plans are aligned so that, you know, it's not confusing to the client. And any advocacy, oftentimes, you know, I support clients' appointments with caseworkers. I think anytime a team approach can be scheduled, sometimes that can be hard with clients who have many providers, but even if only 2 or 3 can get together, that's that many less appointments that client needs to fit into their schedule if they could meet with multiple providers at the same time.
Reducing that duplication, certainly.
Jesse, could I ask them a question?
Sure.
So, I mean, I just love you guys, your programs. We are encountering a lot of reluctance on the part of returning moms to apply for TANF related to child support issues, and how either fathers will then have to pay back if they are incarcerated, but also for moms who were paying child support. And if the caregiver collected TANF benefits, then the mom has to pay back the state in many states when she returns. So I'm wondering if you could address that from New York and Vermont perspectives, because it's an issue in a lot of states.
Yeah, it is. In New York, so it is a mandatory requirement of TANF that the mom applies for child support. They can claim good cause. So if it's an abusive relationship, or if it was some sort of violence that caused this pregnancy, we will allow her to claim good cause so that she does not have to pursue it. But as far as the collection, we really try to work with our non-custodial parent. We have a presence in the local family court where we try to get them the non-custodial parent support in finding a job. We have job leads. We give some legal counsel. A lot of times the change of their situation is not reported. So maybe they lost their job, or the non-custodial parent has a reduced income, and that wasn't reported. So they're still paying child support based on what their income was a month ago. So it's very important that these non-custodial parents, be it the mom or the dad, get to court and let them know of any changes, because it will affect their child support. As far as paying back, there's nothing. We try to do deals. You know, we're confined by federal jurisdiction, so it is hard. It's definitely a challenge in New York State for sure.
I think in Vermont, it's very, very similar. What does help is the REACH-up or the TANF benefits tend to be higher than what the child support would be. Therefore, the custodial parent is more likely to apply for TANF because the money will be consistent and it will be higher than what they would just get from the non-custodial parent as child support. So it's the thing. It's a struggle. It's real for a lot of people, but I think we do have more people accepting it only because it's financially more beneficial.
If I could just jump back in for a second, that's a good point. We do the same thing in New York State. So the parent will pay us, the non-custodial parent will pay the child support to the Department of Social Services, and we then pass it through to the custodial parent within the temporary assistance grant. So that does control it better. Like Monica said, it's a steady, even amount. They know what the amount's going to be in addition to their public assistance grant, and it's a little bit of security.
Thank you, guys. That was a really important question and topic, not an easy one either by any means. We have about 2 or 3 minutes left, and I know that there's been a few other questions that have come in. I don't think we'll have time to get to them right at this moment, but know that we can do some follow-up with the Q&A with our presenters and share those responses after the session, along with, again, that video that was shared during Heather's session. Let's go to the next slide real quick. So this is our final poll. What additional information would be helpful to you right now as you consider ways to better support reentering moms? So you can check all that apply. Perhaps it has to do with how TANF funds can be used to support reentering moms, examples of reentry programs funded with TANF dollars, understanding the challenges that are facing reentering moms, or maybe some ideas for implementing reentry programs in a tribal population. Again, please select all that apply. And this will help us, with future TA and support. Okay. So it certainly looks like topics relating to funding are paramount, understandably, as well as understanding challenges and to some extent working with tribal populations. Thank you, guys. So with that, we'll go to the next slide, and I'm going to turn things back to James Butler from OFA. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jesse. And just as a reminder for those of you who may be joining us for the first time, a transcript and audio recording of this webinar will be available in the coming weeks on our OFA POTA Network website, and that link to the website is showing on the screen before you. We're always interested to know if there are webinar topics that you'd like to hear about. So if you have any topics that you'd like to hear about, please send those also to the following website that you'll see on the screen as well, the POTA@blhtech.com. You can also help us expand our network to reach a greater number of people by directing any of your interested colleagues from your local and state networks and agencies to our website, also shown in the last link before you. Just want to thank everyone who took time out of your busy schedules to join us in today's webinar. My sincere appreciation again to our expert presenters, Anne, Monica, Jennifer, Heather, and Tiffany, and Jessie for her facilitation. We're going to launch a quick survey for you to complete regarding today's webinar. That's going to appear in a separate pop-up window when the webinar ends. Your feedback, as always, is very important to us, so please take a couple of minutes to complete the survey. Thank you again for your time today, and we look forward to your participation in our future webinars. Thanks, everybody, and enjoy the remainder of your day.